What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Niner Sickness Podcast. I am your boy, your host, Beto. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone is having a great Friday. The weekend's almost here. Getting ready for the weekend. So much to talk about. I have a great guest tonight that I'm going to be bringing on for you guys to get to know and support his channel. This guy's a great content creator. He brings up a lot of great topics. So if you want to continue to be informed about your San Francisco 49ers, make sure to give my guest a follow. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing great. I'm waiting for people to come in. You know, people trickle in little by little, but let's build this show up and let's talk some football. So many things in June, right? So many things to talk about in June. Mid-June, my goodness. When is training camp going to start? When is training camp going to start? Make sure before we get started to wipe your feet and smash that like button. Show some love and support to the channel. With no further ado, let me go ahead and bring in my guest. Many of you know him from Niners Access. My brother Sterling Bennett, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Happy to be here on a Friday night.
Yeah, it's Friday. Believe it, it's already Friday. It's like, where has the week gone to? I'm retired, so I'm always home. And it's like, I don't know what day it is anymore. When I used to work, I knew when Friday was. Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's like, oh, it's Friday? It's every day's Friday. For me. Now, for many of those that are watching, probably not. Let me go ahead and say hi to some of the new viewers real quick. Give me a second. We got Jimmy in the house. What's up, Jimmy?
Going on, Jimmy?
How you doing, sir? Says, good evening, everyone. Please do not forget to smash the like button and subscribe to both channels. Yes, we are on both channels. We are also on Niners Access, so make sure to support and subscribe to his channel as well. Let's see who else is up. We got Eddie in the house. What's up, Eddie? How you doing, sir? Good to see you, my friend.
Eddie.
We got my brother from a different mother. We got Senor Luis Moreno. What's up, Luis? How you doing? We got Fluffy Ninja. Love that name. What's up, Fluffy? Oh, man, what a name. What a name. So let's get to know who you are and what you're about. So let me ask you the first question. How long have you been a Niner fan? And who introduced you to the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, I would like to say that I've been a Niner fan since birth out there in 1996 in Pittsburgh, California in the Bay Area, but I can unfortunately say that I began my life as a Raider fan simply because Jerry Rice was a Raider.
What?
And I was in love with Jerry Rice. I knew he was a Niner, but I loved Jerry Rice. When the Raiders were in the Super Bowl, I was all, let's go Jerry Rice, everything. But my father pulled me back from the dark side. And since then, I've gone through many torturous Super Bowl losses, playoff losses, and many down seasons. Chip Kelly, Alex Smith, Tim Rattay, Cody Pickett's, and whatnot. But I am been a Niner fan since I want to say the year 2004, pre-Alex Smith. And unfortunately lived the hardships, but a lot of success in my lifetime with the Niners.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Raider fan. What?
No
I'm
longer.
I'm still stuck in that. You know, listen, if I can confess something, I said this publicly before. I went to a period of kind of like, I just lost my mind. I don't know what I was thinking. I went through a moment where I know you're young, so I don't know if you remember when the Niners had won back-to-back Super Bowls. And they were back in the NFC Championship, about to go to the third straight Super Bowl, and they were facing the Giants, and all they were trying to do is kill the clock and eventually advance to the Super Bowl to play the Buffalo Bills. And Roger Craig gets hit. The ball goes out. Lawrence Taylor lands on the ball. They go kick a field goal, and they go to the Super Bowl. I lost it. To the fact that I went to the nearest mall that it was where I was living in San Jose, bought me some Raider gear, and mind you, I did not even make it out of the store. And I'm not your buff looking guy either. So I tore that stuff. I mean, I didn't tear off the shorts, but I tore everything off that I could. And I got home and I'm like, what did I just do? But for them, I was just so pissed off that the
Right.
way we lost that game, when we were controlling the whole game, we were beating on the Giants, and to lose it that way was heartbreaking. So I admit I did that for, I would say, 10 minutes. If anybody can understand where you're coming from, my friend, I can. It looks like we have someone here that supports you, my friend.
Let's see. Is it Spy Nick Danger? Oh yeah, we know Spy Nick Danger.
I love it. I love it. I love it when we get people that support.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I love it. I love it when you get to support your favorite content creator. Welcome to the channel, my friend. Welcome. Good to see you. We got my friend Bebop in the house. What's up, Bebop? Good to see you. He says, let's get Aiyuk signed and go win a Super Bowl. That's going to be an interesting topic because I'm going to ask my guest today if it's possible to win a Super Bowl without Aiyuk. But we're going to get into that towards the end of the show. So let me. So we found out how you became a Niner fan. What made you get started doing your podcast and giving your content out to the Niner community? And since you're on that, going to be on that point, at that point, go ahead and let people know who, where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, what is your schedule for your channel, and so forth.
Yeah, so I guess you can say my journey to becoming a Niner content creator began all the way back in college. I have my sports journalism degree from Azusa Pacific University in Southern California. And with that, took many radio classes, broadcasted football, broadcasted baseball, started my own podcast in college called Bush League Sports. Obviously, I was a baby in the podcast world, and dare I say I still am, but moved back home from Southern California after a stint at Fox Sports Radio in Ventura, moved back to the Bay Area and said, you know what, I want to get back into podcasting. I want to keep my sports radio career alive. Eventually got a job in 95.7 The Game and wanted to continue my growth and started podcasting in my room at home. Actually, I'm at my parents' house and just kind of began covering the team on social media, which then kind of formed into starting the podcast. And to find me, you can go, whether it's on X or Twitter, if you want to call it that still, Instagram, just type in 49ers Access. 49ers.access is the Instagram. 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. We're also on Facebook if you Facebook. And you can find the podcast typing in 49ers Access and the YouTube channel. All the same thing. Just hit 1K this past week. So a pretty monumental day and week for the podcast.
Applause for that. And I was mentioning to you when we were off there how hard it is to accomplish that milestone, and you did it, my friend. Wow, I did not know you had the school behind you doing this. Now I understand how you pretty much go on your channel and the way you break things down. You know, you're a bright gentleman, and I love your takes. I love the way you explain things clearly for those that may not quite understand as football as in depth as a lot of us do. It's nice to hear someone be able to say their point, but break it up so they can kind of give the listener an opportunity to understand where you're coming from. And I love the way you do that. I love the way you break it down. So how long has your channel been going on, your YouTube channel? 'Cause I didn't know you had the other platforms, of which I'm going to go and follow you as well. But your YouTube channel, when did you start it?
Yeah, I started posting the audio podcasts with like a videogram on there about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago. I think it was the 2021 playoff run, but really started getting into it last training camp and last OTAs when I got to go as part of the media, which is carried over into the last season and now carrying over into this season. So about 2 years now really sticking to the podcast.
Awesome. And then you say you work for 97 The Game?
Yeah, I used to work at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. I have sadly moved to Southern California, but still have attachments there, still working there remotely. But yeah, I got to cover thankfully and very graciously, I'm very thankful for my time there. I was the Golden State Warriors network coordinator. I worked alongside Tim Roy and RC Davis, if you know those guys, Tom Tolbert, and Jim Barnett for a long time. I also got to host Niners postgame overtime all last season with my friend Mark Grandy. We got to dive into every single game right after the clock hit zero, which, as we all know, went from week one all the way until Super Bowl week. And was it a fun end to the season? No, but it was a privilege to be able to talk to Niner fans, to laugh with them, have fun with them, celebrate, and unfortunately mourn with them as the season ended. But yeah, it's been all Niners what seems like the last couple of years. And whether it was on the podcast myself or by myself and at 95.7 The Game with Mark Randy and others.
I love it. I love it. Real quick, I just want to say and, echo Fluffy Ninja Sterling. Congratulations again on your wedding. So we have a newlywed in the house. Wow.
We do.
How long have you been married?
Well, I'm not wearing the ring right now. Don't tell her that. But we've been
My
married
goodness.
for almost a month. So in 10 days, it'll be 1 month we've been married. So roughly, I guess, almost 3 weeks. Actually, we just turned in the marriage license this morning. So we are officially married as of today, although the ceremony took place May 31st. So thank you so much, Fluffy. And thank you as well, Beto.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hey, the ring thing, you're a rookie. You're going to learn. I've been married for 30 years. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. This thing does not come off. If it does, the finger better be attached to it, according to my wife. Yeah, my wife doesn't believe in divorce. She believes in murder. So, I'm always in my best behavior. And I'll be honest. And a lot of people that just got married or haven't been married, it's a job, and it's you got to make it work. It's an everyday sacrifice. Things that, you're young. Things that when I was your age or barely married a year or 6 months, the way I think today is nowhere near what I thought back then. I have learned and grown so much, and gratefully I've learned my mistakes, and she put up with me and stood by me. But I always like to tell the young people, listen, choose to fight your battles. Choose and win to fight your battles. Some battles are not worth fighting, in my opinion. Sometimes I can prove that I'm right. I can prove the wife is wrong, but then I have to ask them what expense that will be. If I prove that she's wrong, but she's pissed off and the house is all quiet, nobody wants to be in the house, is it worth it? Or is it worth it me proving her right, even though she's not, just to have a happy home? I've learned to fight my battles, and it works out. So, wow. Today, it's official. What a way to do a podcast with me, officially, Mr. Bennett.
Yes, sir.
I like it. Hopefully we'll keep in contact, and in 20 years I'll ask, how's your wedding? How's your marriage doing? Get some feedback from you. Let's get back to football. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, the whole ordeal of what's happening. You've been covering the Niners. You follow the Niners. You know that 49ers have a way they operate. They have a style of business, how they go by, especially under Kyle and John Lynch. They have proven in the past, history has proven that no matter who you are, you're not going to get signed no sooner than late July, early August. That's a process they go by. I don't expect it to be any different with Aiyuk. I know a lot of Niner fans are anxious. They want him signed. But if I recall, a couple years ago, we were in the same dilemma with Debo. Debo wanted to be traded. Debo didn't want to be here no more. Bob, oh my God, where's Debo going to go? Is he going to get traded on draft day? Draft came and went. He was still on the roster. He's as happy as he can be. He's still here. So I want to get your opinion on the whole Brandon Aiyuk. Do you think that the Niners will continue with their tradition and covet the players they draft and develop and get them signed? Or do you think there might be a chance that Brandon Aiyuk might be the first to make it out? And I don't count for DeForest Buckner in that level. So what are your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I think with the whole Brandon Aiyuk situation, I'm not sure it's different than any other contract negotiation they've had. I actually think Brandon Ayuk has played this thing relatively safe and close to the vest. The only time we've heard him say anything was the TikTok video last weekend, whatever it was. Where he's saying they don't want me here. Well, if you're following and I'm following it, San Francisco has shown no indication of them not wanting Brandon Ayuk to be here for the long term. Adam Schefter today on the Pat McAfee show talked about how San Francisco wasn't seriously considering trading him during the draft, which I think was kind of a no-brainer. I know Ricky Pearsall was picked, and that led fans to theorize and whatnot, what that means for Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel going forward. But I've never got the assumption or the thought that Brandon Aiyuk was going to be in any other jersey than a San Francisco 49ers one this upcoming season. Whether it be, his agent on social media talking and constantly dispelling trade rumors and whatnot. You don't do that if you want leverage. Like Brandon Aiyuk doesn't have the leverage already because San Francisco, if he doesn't want to sign this year, they fine him. If he doesn't want to play at all during the season, well, guess what? He loses an accrued season and is back doing the exact same thing next year. And San Francisco can also franchise tag him. So essentially, San Francisco has Brandon Aiyuk under contract for the next 2 years. One of those if they truly want to have him there. But again, you could argue Brandon Aiyuk, and there are some content creators, and it's no shade at all, that believe San Francisco botched this negotiation. I don't believe that. I think Brandon Aiyuk botched the negotiation. He should have been the first one to sign. Set the market yourself. Sure, you missed out on a handful of $1 million, but if you're now pushing for Justin Jefferson money or Amon-Ra St. Brown money, you are not them, unfortunately. They know you're not him or those two players, and you should know you're not them. Now, I don't fault him for asking for that money. Why wouldn't you? What's the worst San Francisco could say? No. But if the offer on the table is still $26 million, as Mike Silver reported it would being, okay, I think you're only $2 million shy of what you're actually going to get, which is around $28 million. So Niner fans, I'm sure, are speculating. We're in June. Nothing's currently happening. Training camp's a month away. Will he show up? Will he not show up? I have a hard time believing we are not going to see Brandon Aiyuk lined up across from Deebo Samuel come week 1 against the Jets on Monday Night Football.
That's what I'm talking about. I love their take. Listen, when people say the Niners, botched this or the Niners, since Kyle and John Lynch has taken over, they always proceeded to be business-like. They love their players. Bosa got signed until next year, where we're going to be talking about Brock Purdy. Bosa's contract has been the largest and biggest contract ever to be given a player in San Francisco history. And they were able to get that done. They were able to get down Fred Warner and Kittle. Let me ask you, Kittle went up for a contract. You didn't hear much. Fred Warner went up for a contract. You didn't hear much. Bosa didn't hear much. What is it with the receivers and that stigma of being a diva that bring out these little TikToks? And people, when I talked to this person the other day, he's like, well, Jerry Rice wouldn't be like that, in his time. Like, Jerry Rice would have been worse than both Deebo and Aiyuk. Trust me, the difference is there was no media like it is today to cover him. Jerry Rice, you can tell the way he is today. That guy's talk about wearing his feelings. Great receiver, the greatest receiver of all time. But that dude's an emotional dude. He would have spilled it out when Joe Montana left the Niners to go and play for Kansas City. I'm pretty sure Jerry would have had something to say. So why is it that the divas are always surrounding that receiver and they get that stigma of always the loudmouths, and if I will, on when it comes to contracts, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think, to kind of harken back to an old phrase Colin Cowherd used to use if you watch him on FS1, he'd always say, the quarterback and the offensive line and the trenches are the cake itself. The receivers are the icing. And I think when you're the icing, you get all the attention, right? You are the first thing many people see. Yes, you are not the organizational cornerstones that come. You're not Tom Brady. You're not Peyton Manning. You're not going to be loved like those players are because the quarterback is the most important position. So when you have a lot of positional players like receivers that aren't as loved or aren't as beloved as quarterbacks are, and on a Niner team that I could, if for being completely honest, the receivers on this team, although we like Aiyuk and we like Debo, do you like them more than Nick Bosa? Do you like them more than Fred Warner? Do you like them more than George Kittle? Do you like them more than Brock Purdy and Chris McCaffrey? Do you like those two guys more than Trent Williams? I could argue Talanoa Hufanga is more popular than Brandon Aiyuk. And so it does seem like at times, while they aren't actually fighting for the spotlight, what they do is they fight for the extra money in their pocketbooks, which by all means, go ahead. If the NFL wants to continue to raise the salary cap, continue to ask for more money. That's how this thing works, right? And so there's a reason Brock Purdy might get $300 million on his next contract because people like Trevor Lawrence get $295 million, match Joe Burrow's record. So again, there's no shade or blame towards Brandon Aiyuk. I just think it's receivers don't get the credit they think they deserve. Kind of like running backs now. A lot of running backs don't get the credit they deserve. A lot of teams are willing to cut them 2 or 3 years early and say goodbye to a 26-year-old running back or 27-year-old running back with plenty left in the tank. Look at Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was awesome last year for the Titans. Now he's in Baltimore. Yep. And he has plenty left in the tank. And I think receivers at this moment are just saying, look, I'm the flashiest player on the field. They're utilized different now than they were 15, 20 years ago. Debo, specifically on the end arounds, the jet sweeps and whatnot. In Brandon Ayuk's case, I think for him, he's looking at the future. You got to pay Brock Purdy. You drafted Pearsall, and Debo might be gone in 1 year's time. You now have the money to pay me if Debo's going to be gone, so you might as well fill that void in a year's time and give me the money that you know I'm deserved because the market dictates it. So of the receivers currently on the team, I would not say Brandon Aiyuk is diva, nor am I saying you're saying that. But I do think if you want to point to a quote-unquote diva-like receiver on the roster currently, I think his name is Deebo Samuel. Look at the way they went about things. It's very different, right? Debo asked for a trade. Debo wanted to be traded. Debo expected to be traded, and he wasn't. Brandon Aiyuk has never asked for a trade, never publicly went to the media and said, get me out of here, never shaded San Francisco outside of the TikTok video last week, which is all a point to create more leverage for himself, which doesn't exist. So I have a hard time believing it's in Brandon Ayuk's nature to be a diva, but Deebo Samuel, it's a very different story.
That's a good point. Brandon Ayuk's a little bit more, and sometimes I think that Brandon Ayuk gets influenced a little bit by Debo too. I'm pretty sure Debo's in his ear, telling him how to go by going through this process because he went through it, and how you can leverage the Niners. And these young players are going to find out that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, there's just no way you're going to change their minds. What people don't realize, and I want to get your thought on this, is as talented as Brandon Aiyuk is, and as the number one receiver, his route running, his catching ability, all that's great. But because of the style that Kyle Shanahan runs here in San Francisco, he might be more valuable in a different offense than he is here. That's why I can't see him making the Jefferson type of money or even the opportunities to get to play like that. And so he needs to understand what he's asked to do here is not what he would normally be asked to do maybe in Minnesota or Buffalo. So do you think that getting the Amon St. Brown's money in Detroit, because if I recall correctly, he had more touches or catches than you did all year. And what amount do you think, if you were a GM and you were part of the organization, do you think what bracket amount you think is appropriate for the production you're getting in this system in San Francisco from Brandon Aiyuk to pay him?
Right. So I think there's two perspectives. There's one, what the market dictates.
Correct.
Are you going to get $34 million a year like Justin Jefferson or whatever he got? Are you going to get Amon-Ra St. Brown's $30 million and around $75+ million guaranteed? I don't think so. I think the way both those teams utilize Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're going to see the football 130 times a year. And I believe Amon-Ra St. Brown has never had under 85 touches. Aiyuk's never had above, I think, 85. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is the Detroit Lions' number one receiver. He's the lifeblood of their offense. That's why Aiyuk's not going to get the money that Amon-Ra St. Brown got. He isn't the receiver number one. Now, if you're working under the assumption that in 1 year's time or 2 years' time, that Aiyuk will be this team's receiver number one, that's when things get tricky because, like you were already saying, Brandon Aiyuk is not playing for Minnesota or Buffalo or a team like the Panthers. If he did play for a team like Carolina, he would get $30 million a year because he'd be their receiver number one and the lifeblood of their offense for a young quarterback like Bryce Young. But he doesn't play for the Carolina Panthers. He plays for the San Francisco 49ers, which, do the Niners actually have a game plan designed around Brandon Aiyuk? They certainly have one for Christian McCaffrey. They certainly have one for Deebo Samuel. And they definitely have one for Brock Purdy because he's a quarterback. And there are some days where there's a game plan for George Kittle. There's rarely ever a game plan for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, is that fair to Aiyuk? No. But there is this sense of he's a luxury to have on your roster. Now, do you want to pay a luxury market value money or higher than market value money? The answer is no. And I think for Brandon Aiyuk, it's going to take a long, hard stare in the mirror to say, look, if I want to stay on the San Francisco 49ers, which he himself said, I want to be in a place where I can win and get paid. Outside of Kansas City, what other roster has the money for you and the capability of winning outside or other than a team like San Francisco? There truly isn't one. There is a perennial contender already sitting in front of your face. And so if you want to leave the team, fine. If you want to get the money and you value it more to give you yourself, whatever else, your family, financial security, by all means, do that. Take care of yourself. Great. If someone offered me $35 million tomorrow to play for a team like the Cleveland Browns, I would take it. I need the money, right? And so, but that's where things get tricky, where Brandon Aiyuk has to look himself in the mirror and say, I'm not the option number one. I'm not option two. I'm not even option three sometimes. In fact, I may be this team's option number four, and the Niners aren't going to pay the option number four on a stacked roster $30 million. Now, what do I think he eventually gets? I think, and I talked about this plenty of times on my own show, I think there is a world where you can combine the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal with his guarantees. You can give Aiyuk $78 million guaranteed. That surpasses or equals Amon-Ra St. Brown's guaranteed money, but you give him annually, on average, over or equal to what Jalen Waddle is getting. That way, he surpasses one of the higher-end number twos, and he doesn't surpass one of the higher-end number ones, putting him right in the middle of two great receivers any team want to have, and it shows him exactly how much of value San Francisco views him as.
You know, that's a very good point that you made there, Sterling. You know, CMC had no guarantees coming into this season. He wanted some guarantees. He's very valuable for what the Niners do on offense. And before you knew it, he was getting paid, right? Brandon Aiyuk, like you said, somewhere else is worth more money. I love what he does, but he isn't that option number one or two. As much as people have their fan favorites, they love to look at things from a fan point perspective. They don't look at it from a business point. What helps the Niners and what hurts the Niners? And the Niners do they want him here? Yes. Do they want him to be a Niner for a long time? Yes. But they have, at least in my opinion, I believe they have a certain amount they're willing to pay him based on what they think he's worth in the system that he's in. And if he gets anywhere near that, they'll sign him. If not, they'll move from him, not because they don't want him, but they just feel that he is not worth going that extra mile where you can get Purcell eventually to replace them, or the way Kyle develops the scheme for players to get open. So he is a great player, could be a valuable player number one on another team, but here he is a number one. He's not even number two, and possibly, and I know Niner fans don't want to hear this, could be that number fourth option. You know, because then you got Kittle, you got CMC, Who else you got? You even got Juice in there. I mean, you got so many playmakers. Debo in there that it's hard to feed everyone. And so I know people have their fan favorites. They want the player they love and covet to get signed. Give him whatever he wants. You know, in an era with no salary cap, yeah, you can have Steve Young and Joe Montana on the same roster for a few years. You can do that, or should you do it in a salary cap era? Yes, I understand the salary goes up every year with more TV signings and so forth, but you still have to have a structure on how you do something to be consistent every year, not to be like the Rams or other teams that put all the chips in the middle of the table. Now, for the Rams, it paid off. They got a Super Bowl out of it. But imagine if they didn't. Where would they be right now? Now, because of great drafting, they're trending on the right side now, and we'll see what happens. But I told this to a Rams fan, because he goes, see how fast we turn things around? I said, when you have a quarterback in place, it's easy to turn something around quicker. You lose Stafford, come and talk to me, see how fast your franchise turns around when you don't have the right quarterback at that position. People don't realize how important quarterbacks are to build around. Let me ask you.
We saw that when Stafford got hurt and Baker Mayfield had to play. And, you know, I think, the Rams turned things around really quickly. They paid a lot of people, and they went all in. Look at the Saints. They've been in cap hell for the last 8 years trying to maximize Drew Brees. And I love Drew Brees. Brock Purdy and him have a lot of similarities, and I know a lot of fans think they are very comparable. But, the way I view the Aiyuk thing is eerily similar to what Adam Schefter said on the Pat McAfee show today. And I said this exact same thing before he even said it, so maybe he's listening to me. Who knows? He's probably
you
not,
never
though.
know. Possible.
But Adam Schefter said this today in regards to the Brandon Aiyuk contract negotiations, that San Francisco wants to pay Brandon Aiyuk. They want him to be a 49er. The issue is they don't want him at $30 million. Yeah, Brandon Aiyuk can go on TikTok and say, they don't want me here. Yeah, they don't want you at $30 million. They want you at 26 and 27 or 28. But that $2 million, you know what helps? And this is the kicker. San Francisco currently has roughly $32 million in cap space. If they can penny pinch Aiyuk, which they're going to try to do, and they're doing it currently, and they can get his cap hit lower this year, maybe they get to $36 and $37 million with what they can free up. Then if you believe the rumor that Trent Williams wants a new contract, you get to lower his cap hit in the next couple of years. If you walk into next year with roughly $40 million carried over in cap space, then you can pay Brock Purdy and not crush your cap. Then you can pay players like Talanoa Hufanga and Diamador Lenore and Mooney Ward and others. All it does is when they penny pinch, although it hurts, and like Deebo Samuel said, you can take things personal, and maybe you shouldn't. It's not meant to be personal. It's meant to help the longevity of the roster and keep the window open. There's a reason San Francisco penny pinches. It's not because they don't like the players. It's because they want to continue to win with that player on the team, but they also want to continue to add other players to keep the window alive and open, hence why they're going to penny pinch Brandon Aiyuk to hopefully and help pay the other superstars on their roster in the last years of their deal, which only helps them keep what everyone is saying, a shrinking window, a little more ajar for a handful of more years.
That's interesting that you say that, because it's so true. I talk to a lot of Niner fans, mainly on X, and they're mad that the Niners are not paying the players what they want. They should pay them. But those are the same fans that are mad at the Niners are not consistent in winning games. It's like, which is it? Unfortunately, with the salary, you can't have both. You have to understand, you have to sacrifice maybe that one player that you love for the sake of the whole team. I always said this, my favorite player is the San Francisco logo. That's my favorite player, first and foremost. I got my Steve Youngs, I got, my John Taylors and so forth, but the logo is what I support and will always support. And as long as the Niners continue to operate the way they're operating and penny pinching, as you said, try to bring other players for the future to continue to sustain a great winning team, the ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl and, get there and win it. But you have to be relevant. You have to be good enough to get to the playoffs, to have that opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. A lot of people forget, and I want to get your thoughts on this. People forget about the Jim Tensulas of the world, the Mike Nolans of the world, the Chip Kellys. How many games were we winning back then? 4, maybe 5 tops. Where was the Super Bowl inspiration? Where was the Super Bowl talk? Oh, Super Bowl or bust. You couldn't even make the playoffs, much less talk about a Super Bowl. But now that we're spoiled and we're going to NFC championships and we're going to 2 Super Bowls and we haven't won it yet, we're not getting to fire Kyle. And it's, I don't know, bro. I don't understand this. Wild Niner fans that I know that you want to be passionate. I know you want to be. Who doesn't want a Super Bowl? But you can't sit there and tell me, and I want to get your honest opinion on this, that we're not a good team and Kyle's fireable because he hasn't won the big one yet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I saw Lori Matthews in the chat, and I'm sure she was listening and watching the day of the Super Bowl pre and post, and I'm sure she heard me and Mark in our emotional ranting after the game. And it's tough, when you see immortality in your hands, and twice in the last 5 years now, 4 years, whatever it's been, and you see it slip through in the fashion it did. It's really hard to cope with that. Now, we can sit here on our podcast and our YouTube channels and, it's all fun and games for us, but imagine being a player. You don't think Kyle Shanahan wants to win? You don't think Kyle Shanahan doesn't go to sleep at night and puts his head on his pillow angry and upset he didn't get it done 3 times? Of course he does. You don't think that when Kyle Shanahan, there's that, now it's a, known picture where Kyle Shanahan is sitting on the floor in the locker room the day of the Super Bowl with his head down between his legs and the ball in his hand. You don't think in his own thoughts he's saying, I'm a loser. I stink. Will I ever get this done? But he has to come to work every single day and every single year, revitalized with the idea and the hope that when it's all said and done this year, I might be able to call myself a Super Bowl champion. You don't think it haunts Frank Gore and Larry Grant and Willis and Bowman that they didn't get it done back in 2011, 2012, whatever it was, against the Ravens? Of course it does. Like, Jim Harbaugh was so jaded by it that he lost to his brother. He went to Michigan because he couldn't get it done. And it took him forever to win in Michigan. And when he won, he came back to the NFL. There's obviously nuances and context involved in that, but all that is to say that the San Francisco 49ers have been the second most successful franchise since Kyle Shanahan took over in 2017. Took him 2 years to get there, but they weren't supposed to be good in 2019. Jimmy Garoppolo off a torn ACL and no true number one receiver. They go and acquire Emmanuel Sanders mid-year and a bunch of defensive questions behind them. Yeah, you had Nick Bosa. You won, 2 games the year before? Yeah, you weren't supposed to be good. And they went to a Super Bowl. You know what was the main reason for that? Yeah, players played well. Fred Warner broke out. Ray Greenlaw was great. So was George Kittle. But Kyle Shanahan helped lead the offense that many people now look back and say, really? Young Deebo Samuel and older Emmanuel Sanders and Jimmy Garoppolo, and they scoff at it. The team was 10 minutes away from winning because of a coach like Kyle Shanahan. Now look, that doesn't mean Kyle Shanahan is a great head coach or he's, like J.D. Durham's saying, the clock management blows my mind. Sometimes the choosing to not use Christian McCaffrey late in the fourth quarter and this, that, and the other. There are so many things to pick apart in Kyle Shanahan's game planning and schemes. It's in the biggest moments, and we hate to say this, but sometimes people are just better than you. Do we not look across the aisle and say, C. Spagnuolo's won 3 Super Bowls, now 4 Super Bowls, as a defensive coordinator for a reason? There's a reason why the Kansas City Chiefs defense, with the roster turnover they've had, having to pay Mahomes and Kelsey, watching Tyreek Hill leave, watching a lot of their defensive players leave, and drafting extremely well to get better, he's a damn good coach. To a point of San Francisco tried to pry him away, knowing they couldn't beat him. If you can't beat him, try to pry him away, right? That's the motto that San Francisco has, and they tried. Now, look, Kyle Shanahan has his faults. He has his holes, and there are a lot of things I just shake my head and say, are you serious, Kyle? How many times do we have to see the same things over and over and over again? 3rd and 1 against the Rams. Kyle Juszczyk fullback run, 2001 NFC Championship game haunts me. Punting on their side of the field when you can put the game away haunts me. knowing that should have been us. You could have 3 Super Bowl appearances in 5 years, and I would like to assume against the Bengals, who we already had beat twice in them, we would have beat them again.
Yep.
It sucks. It stinks. But guess what? Outside of Kansas City, San Francisco is the most successful team in the NFL the last 5 years. That's how good they've been. You know who else hasn't gotten it done? Nick Sirianni. Bruce Arians got carried by Tom Brady. It's the only reason why that thing got done. Like Kyle Shanahan's is so far, outside of Sean McVay, the third most accomplished head coach in football right now in the last 5 years. Like, again, is he great? I don't know. Will he ever win? I have no idea. But the idea that fire Kyle Shanahan or, we're not good enough, we lose the big games. Yeah. You know who else loses big games? The 31 other teams that didn't make it to the last dance. Or the 30 other teams that didn't make it and the one that lost. And San Francisco has been there twice. Does it hurt? Yeah. Does it suck? Yeah. Does it make you want to go sit in the ground in the fetal position and cry for a night? Sometimes it does. It really does. It makes you feel defeated. I'll be the first person to admit. I was around, 14 years old. San Francisco playing the Ravens in the Super Bowl. And I watched my team crumble before the Beyonce shot the lights out at the Benz, right? And they lost, and I cried because I was 14. It was my first taste of Niner playoff football where they almost got it done, and I cried. Now, I'm a little jaded now, unfortunately. I've seen it happen 2 more times since then, but San Francisco is going to be good this year. Unless a season like 2020 happens, cross my fingers, knock on wood, I hope it doesn't. We've seen it happen before, but unless we have all these catastrophic injuries, I can argue that this is their best team ever.
Yeah.
Under Kyle Shanahan after a Super Bowl loss. And if that's not a great place to be in, to get you hopeful, to make you happy and excited, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, so true. I like to remind Niner fans, too, that Andy Reid, before getting his 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, was that Kyle Shanahan when he was with Philadelphia, getting over to the championship and not crossing over. I can bet that Andy Reid made a lot of the mistakes that Kyle has made, or similar to that. And he has learned from those mistakes, and he built off those mistakes. And as you saw, was able to out-coach Kyle because he's been through that in his past. And he was able to learn what he did wrong and what he can do different. Kyle needs the same type of experience. People don't realize coaches like players. You build off experience. And Kyle has this team being the second best team. The Niners lost to the Chiefs, and yet Vegas has the Niners favorite to win the Super Bowl. Favorites. It's because of the roster they put together. And people always go, Jim Harbaugh did that. I go, Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. I'm not taking that from him. But people forget that when Jim Harbaugh took over a Niners team, it was a good team. You had the Vernon Davises, you had the Patrick Willis, the Navarro Bowmans, the Cowboy Smith, and you had Alden, and they drafted Alden Smith, and they had a lot of great players. When Kyle came in, this team was depleted. It was terrible. He had to pretty much employ all the roster. I think he kept like 3 or 4 from the previous roster on the new roster and built it from the floor up and was able to get to a Super Bowl 2 years later. People are never going to realize how good Kyle is until he's not here anymore. Is he perfect? No. Does he make his mistakes? Yes. But you made an excellent point. Do you think he wants to lose Super Bowl? You think he goes to a Super Bowl with the game plan of losing? No. And sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment and you're like the whole, you should have deferred the ball in overtime instead of taking it first, blah, 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 whatever. Mistakes are made. You can't change mistakes. You're at the heat of the moment. You're making decisions on the fly. A lot of things are going through your head. But what he's able to accomplish, a lot of coaches will never see. Forget about a Super Bowl. They will not see the NFC Championship game. The Cowboys have not been to an NFC Championship since. You think the Niners haven't won a Super Bowl? They haven't even made it to the NFC Championship game. The Cowboys were one and done. And this is something that I said on my podcast not too long ago. During Kyle and John Lynch, has the Niners ever been one and done in the playoffs? No. Ever. They always advance. and I think sometimes Niner fans get spoiled. We win. We've been to the NFC Championship, and I understand that's not enough. Now we want to win it. And it's okay to be ambitious and desire more, but don't put your head down. At least I don't. People ask me, how long did it take you? This is me, but this is years of experience as well. I'm 54. So I've been through a lot. I've been to all the 5 Super Bowls in person. I got to watch them in person and enjoy that. So I got to watch the parades. And now I'm, I was like, the Niners go to the Super Bowl, they win. They're undefeated. Now it's like, oh crap. Now we're 0-3. You know what I mean? But that's reality. Now I know how other teams felt. I always used to say this. I wonder how the Bengals felt back then, going to 2 Super Bowls and losing to the Niners. That must suck to lose to the same team. And guess what? It does suck because we just lost twice to the Chiefs, right? So now I'm experiencing that part of it. Now, young kids, they want to experience a Super Bowl. Yourself, you want to experience a Super Bowl, and that's all good. But you have to be able to be good enough to make it to the playoffs and be competitive enough to get to the Super Bowl. I really believe this year, as long as we knock on wood, there's no injuries, like nothing like 2020 ever, this team has a very good chance of winning it all. And Kyle is going to pull from his experience in 2019, and he's going to pull from his experience in 2023. And hopefully this year, if we get there, he can use that to his advantage. Did you ever experience any of the Super Bowl? I don't know your age, but watch them, like not a replay, but watch them live.
Yeah, I'm only 27, so my Niner history is simply the tail end of the Garcia era, which was fun. It was really fun to watch as a young kid. Then it was, the Tim Rattays, the Cody Pickett's, the Chris Winkies, the JT O'Sullivans, and it was like, what the hell is going on?
So you can appreciate Brock Purdy,
yes,
right?
Yes. I mean, even then, like, take Cap and take Alex Smith, they had short peaks, but they were really fun to watch,
True that.
Again, I totally understand we haven't got things done, but I've seen a lot worse. I always take it because I played baseball for 18 years of my life, and I'm a diehard Giants fan. And my father never got to see them win a World Series. He got to watch them lose in 2002 against the Angels, and took all the way until 2010. So he's 63 now. He's 53 years old at the time they won a World Series. And I think about this, if it took him that long, or roughly that long, to watch his Giants win a World Series, and it has to take me that long to watch my Niners win to win a Super Bowl, then so be it. And that sucks, and I'm not okay with that, but I've come to the realization that, not many people get to watch the Golden State Warriors win 4 rings in like 7 years, whatever it was. Not many people get to watch the Dynasty Yankees round off, almost 3 in a row in the late 90s and early 2000s. Not many people get to watch the Kansas City Chiefs out there in Kansas and Missouri, watch them win 3 Super Bowls, or the Patriots watch Tom win 6 or 7, whatever it is now. Like, those things just don't happen, right? And so the Cubs took 106 years to win a World Series. Yeah. Now, these things take forever. These things never happen. The Padres never won one. The Bills lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
And they're still trying to get back, and they can't even do it. So, that doesn't mean the pain's okay. It doesn't mean losing's okay. No one's accepting the losses as, it'll happen eventually. No. When you're there, you have to strike while the iron's hot. But this idea of fire Kyle, or this disingenuous anger towards the roster that is perennially, that's even a word, in the playoffs, in NFC championship games, against the league's best in boat racing them. They beat the Dallas Cowboys 42-10 in prime time early in the year. The Dallas Cowboys got boat raced by the Green Bay Packers, who came out of nowhere in the wild card round. Would you rather lose in the wild card round to the Packers and get boat raced and embarrassed at your own place in Jerry's World, or barely beat the Packers and escape the Lions and have the Chiefs for the second time in a row on their heels reeling and then lose? I'd rather experience the most extreme pain of nearly winning than being embarrassed at home. So I just think San Francisco's in a great place. Yeah, you can complain. Is the roster not better today than when it ended last season in February? I think it is. Now,
Yes.
the guys have to go out there and play and perform, sure. Brock Purdy could suck this year, and we're all like, what the heck's going on? Now, I don't think that'll happen, but they're better this year than they were last year, at least on paper. And if you were that close, you were an overtime drive away from winning in the Super Bowl, and now you're better, what does that mean? You should be in prime position to win a Super Bowl this year.
Absolutely. And just to let you know, I don't know if you knew this, but I'm a huge Laker fan. So the whole get out of here with the Warriors. But
I'm not a Warrior fan. I just used to work for him, so you're okay.
17 championships. So I have I been spoiled? Absolutely. 5 Super Bowl wins for the Niners during my young youth. And the Lakers were winning way before me. But we get, some of us get spoiled, some of us don't. It's hard. You know how many coaches are great Hall of Fame coaches that never won a Super Bowl? Marv Levy with Buffalo. You're not going to tell me he's not a good coach? Great coach, never won one. Quarterbacks that never won one are great. Dan Marino's. So the Super Bowl is hard to get to. Now, the 89ers made it look like it was easy, and now the 20s, whatever you want to call this era, century Chiefs are making it look that way because with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they're just winning, and they could go back this year and make it a three-peat. I hope it doesn't happen. It'll be, how beautiful would it be for us to stop that third three-peat by beating them in the Super Bowl this time around. So listen, I love watching football. When you said beating the Cowboys 42-10, listen, I grew up hating the Cowboys. I don't really care about the Cowboys that much no more because they're not relevant. They don't pose any threat to us at all. But back in the 80s, if it wasn't, and I still blame the Minnesota Vikings for the Niners not having 8 Super Bowls. And a lot of people,
Herschel Walker trade.
Yeah, see, you know where I was going. A lot of people are like, "What is the Viking?" Yes, the Herschel Walker trade. Because those back then, if you look at those trades and everything that was manipulated in the trade, it's not like the trades of today. It was like, if we cut this player this time, we get your third, or if we cut this player, we get your second. And the way that the Cowboys just fleeced the Vikings on that was terrible. And they were able to get all the players they got, and we lost to the Cowboys more than we should have. And if it wasn't for them being in our way, we would have had more Super Bowls today. But it is what it is. But watching the Niners beat the lights out of the Cowboys, it was fun. I don't know about you, but it was fun. Watching the Niners go into Philadelphia, who talks all that smack. We beat you guys last year. We were so tough on defense that we knocked your quarterback out and all this garbage. And what do the Niners do? Debo. One thing about Debo, and this is why I can't wait for the Green Bay game this year. When you challenge Debo and you talk about Debo on social media, Debo likes to show up. We're hearing it all the time against the Eagles. Debo had one of his best games in that game. Now you have the corner from the Packers talking their smack about how they let us off the hook, blah, blah, blah. And he's not really lying in a sense, because as easy as we could have won that game in Kansas City or against Kansas City in the Super Bowl, it's as easily we could have lost that game against Green Bay if we can keep it 100. So it is what it is. But watching our team destroy other teams, embarrass them, beat these teams, it's fun for me. Do I want a Super Bowl? Yes. But maybe it's because I spoke, because people ask me, how long did it take you to get over the Super Bowl loss? And I said, as long as I was asleep that day. What do you mean? I went to bed, I woke up the next day, and I was over it. How could, you're not a real Niner fan? I go, I got a tattoo right here, I got a tattoo here. I mean, what do you mean? I've been watching Niners before you were even alive. The reality is, there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
There's nothing I can do. I understand some people take longer than others, and I respect that. But there's nothing I don't care how many times we watch that game. If we would have did this, if we would have called that play, if Debo would have ran this route, you can go nuts trying to change the outcome that it was never be changed. So Did I get over it? Yes. I moved forward. I'm looking forward this year. What have we done to improve? Let me get to the super chat real quick. Give me a second, real quick. From Bobo. I think he's one of your guys.
Thank you.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you for the $2 donation to the channel.
Can I just pause for 1 second and say, Bobo, that is the first ever super chat I've ever gotten. So thank you so much. You don't have to do that. I'm never going to ask for money. I'm sure Beta won't either. But for that, just to give your hard-earned $2, it means the world, at least to me, and I'm sure to Beta as well, where money's hard to come by nowadays. Everything's expensive. $2 is a lot of money to me. And so thank you so much to go out of your way and do that. Really appreciate it.
Wow, talk about putting me in a humble place. Yeah, that's that. I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, okay, I'm all thank you, and you're like, but hey,
fireworks going everywhere.
Yeah. You just blew, yeah. But I understand what you mean, and it's so true. Yeah. I want to echo what you just said, Bobo. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that, and you did that. And money is hard to come by. Everybody's in different situations, and just to show the love, man, I appreciate it so much. Very humbling take there, man. Wow. Yeah, you caught me off guard on that one. But very rightfully said, my friend. That is good.
But a second round pick for Aiyuk, a second round pick? That's it?
No. Who said that? Where do you read that at?
It's Bobo.
Oh, Bobo?
Look, Bobo.
Oh, on that one.
I'll just say this. While we graciously appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, I was caught up in the $2 that I... Yeah. Now I even feel worse. Thank you there, Shirley.
Oh no, Mike. I just can't buy into the idea that San Francisco trades their number 2 receiver, 4th option, for a second round pick next year. If it was this year in this year's draft, fine. If it's a high second round pick, they didn't draft Pearsall, cool. But I just can't get in or buy into the idea that San Francisco trades Aiyuk when they want to win this year. I totally get they have Ricky Pearsall, and they're very similar in their skill sets.
But he's not proven.
Pearsall is not Brandon Aiyuk. But if this was next offseason and Aiyuk plays out on a 5th-year option and they franchise tag him, then we can cross that road when we get there. I don't think I'd be opposed to what you're saying. But I just don't think a second-round pick is enough for Aiyuk this year. I think Aiyuk means more to San Francisco than a second-round pick of an unknown player would at this point in time.
Yeah, and there's no need, honestly, there's no need to get rid of Aiyuk. Like you said, he's under contract. People forget he's on the 5th-year option. They went ahead and took that. So he's getting paid 14-point-something million this year. And next year, if things don't work out, they have the option to franchise tag him. And the following year, if they even want to go that route. But he can be signed this year, but to be traded, that sounds to me like desperation from the Niners standpoint, and there's no need. What is a second round going to do for you this year? What is it going to do for you?
Right.
There's nothing that a second round is going to do for you this year. If you would have told me a second round going into this year's draft, depending where that second round was, maybe we can have a discussion. But for next year, how does that pay off? It doesn't pay off. So, but thank you for the $2 donation. And I don't know about you. I think anything other than a first right now for me, Aiyuk is not. Aiyuk is not going anywhere. I mean, you gave up a first to get him. You develop him. You make him who he is, and then you're just going to give him up for a second round. I just don't see that happening.
Right, and that's the thing is. Let's say Aiyuk plays hardball, right? Which I don't have any indication he'll do that. I don't think anyone does. Time will obviously tell. But let's just assume that Brandon Aiyuk plays hardball and doesn't want to play on the San Francisco 49ers with the money they're willing to pay him. Let's say it is $26 million. Okay, cool. You don't want to be here anymore. You know what you do? You just let him sit there and rot all year long. Say, fine, don't play. We have Pearsall. Now, Pearsall isn't Aiyuk, but if Pearsall, from what all the indications and reports are saying, which they shouldn't be surprised, but he looks pretty good against air so far. And so when the pads come on, if he continues to improve and look like he belongs in the NFL, great. San Francisco, that only helps their negotiations with Aiyuk. And here's the thing. If Pearsall blows everybody out of the water and looks like a real deal early in the season, and San Francisco is 4-0 or 3-1 without Brandon Aiyuk, you know what happens? Aiyuk comes crawling back to the table, being like, I'll take 26. Even if it is for not 3 years, but it's 2 years, to allow him to hit the market again at 27, 28 years old. Like, I think there is a real possibility in which, if they can't get a 4 or 5 year deal done, okay, give me 2 years. Make it fully guaranteed. That way Aiyuk gets his money in 2 years' time. Pearsall's had 2 years in the league. He'll be entering year 3. You can draft the receiver to replace Aiyuk eventually or have Debo for the extra season. And then you can say goodbye in 2 years' time to Brandon Aiyuk once he's 28 years old and wants to get paid $35 million to reset the market entirely. There is ways to work with this, but every single one of them points back to San Francisco having complete leverage. If Aiyuk doesn't want to play, like the only scenario, and Bobo, this is my comment back to you in regards to trading him away for a second round pick. And I know you listen to my show and you watch my show, and I'm sure you've heard this before. The only way in which Brandon Aiyuk gets leverage is if he holds out into the season and San Francisco is under 500 through the first month. That's the only way. And don't forget, San Francisco is a team that was 3-5 and 4-4 at one point and still made the playoffs in both those seasons. In fact, in both those years, went to the NFC Championship game and more. So I'm of the belief that path to leverage for Brandon Aiyuk has like a 1% chance of actually existing. And then you add in the fact that the idea they start below 500 with Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy off the 2 MVP finalist years, Deebo Samuel completely healthy, George Kittle hopefully healthy off the adductor injury, and you add in Garendo, and you add in Jawan Jennings off a contract extension, Jacob Cowing. This offense is loaded to at least survive a little bit without Brandon Aiyuk. Now, again, is there a 1% chance things go awry and Brandon Aiyuk gets his money? Sure. But I think it's a very, very, very slim chance he has any leverage at all, which then I think he comes crawling back to San Francisco if he holds out saying, like, please pay me. I will take $26 million to be on this team.
Love it, love it. Let's change pace a little bit, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about training camp coming up pretty soon.
Do it.
I want to ask you, who particularly do you see improving, whether they've been on this team or not, next year or in training camp and going forward? If you can give me a name on offense and on defense, or maybe not improve, but maybe someone that you have expectations for, that you think that they can be better this going into this season, and they're going to start showing it in training camp.
Well, let's start on defense. In regards to defense, I mean, a lot of it really is a lot of star players actually playing up to their potential. Javon Hargrave didn't do that last year. Who's Leonard Floyd going to be? But if I want to pick a young player, and I truly want to buy into a young player becoming a star, I think it's Jair Brown. I think, in that secondary room, he's now, well, not a vet, he's a leader. They have George Odom. They have an injured Talanoa Hufanga coming off the ACL tear, and they have Malik Mustafa. Jair Brown is the starting, quote unquote, free safety of that, of the back seven, if you will. And I think getting the reps that he did in the meaningful games he did. I don't want to say that Talanoa Hufanga's injury was a blessing in disguise, because it wasn't. He was hurt, and had he played in that game, maybe they win. Who knows, right? But it certainly helps Jair Brown. It certainly helps him get the experience. He picked off Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He now walks into this year an accomplished second-year player. And I think that is like, now you're wanting him to assert himself, become a leader, take Malik Mustafa under his wing, and do the exact same thing Deshaun Gibson and Hufanga did for him last year. And it definitely took time for Brown to get his feet wet and feel comfortable, but he wasn't the reason. He wasn't the reason as to why this team lost the Super Bowl. He was pretty darn good in the Super Bowl. So I think I'd pick Jair Brown. Probably an easy pick, kind of a cop-out pick, but overall, I really like him as a player. He is a takeaway machine and was at Penn State and certainly was last year in his short stint when he took over for Ufunga against the Buccaneers. But on offense, that's where things get tricky because there really isn't any young players coming in that you're like, wow, like I think Pearsall will have an impact, but as to how much, who knows, right? He's a young receiver, Kyle Shanahan's doghouse. He's really tough on guys. I know Kyle Shanahan said he wants to kind of save Christian McCaffrey from himself. So do we see Elijah Mitchell step up? Do we see Jordan Mason? I think Isaac Guerendo is probably a year or two away from actually impacting a roster outside of kick returns. And even then, Elijah Mitchell can't even stay healthy. So, what's going to happen there? Honestly, I would not be shocked if Braden Willis is this team's tight end number 2 because Logan Thomas can't always stay healthy. He got some reps last year. Was he overly impressive? Not really, but I do think he walks into this year at least tight end 3 behind Eric Saubert or ahead of Eric Saubert, excuse me, and certainly ahead of Cam Latu and Mason Pline. And if Logan Thomas can't stay healthy, then Braden Willis is this team's tight end number 2 behind George Kittle. And, I also wouldn't be shocked if we see players like Ben Barch overtake Nick Zakel as the backup center. I also wouldn't be shocked if, Dominic Pooney becomes the backup right tackle, which I think is kind of already assumed, but they signed Brandon Parker this past offseason. They brought in other guys to be tackles. So, there are a lot of questions in regards to depth on the offensive line. But other than that, the starting 5 are kind of set in place, set in stone. And there isn't really much wiggle room for anybody to kind of usurp somebody on the depth chart. So maybe I'll take Braden Willis and Elijah Mitchell to actually do something this year.
Yeah, I like that. I like the take. Yeah, for me on defense, I'm kind of leaning. He started to show his stride little by little. I think this year is going to be a year where Lenore really steps up and becomes that corner. I mean, I like him already better than Ward in many ways, and I love Ward.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Domino Menor when he came out of Oregon, and I remember when Emory Thomas came out. Me and one of my friends, we had a bet who was going to be the better corner at that time, and you got Emory Thomas in the 3rd round, you got Lenore in the 5th round, and right off the bat, I thought I was losing that bet. I'm like, oh. Emory Thomas looks good, but then he took a dive, and I just always liked Lenore. I know you can play him outside, inside. He's very confident, and he can cover anybody. So I would really like to see him. I can even argue that the Niners could easily have a top 5 corner duo this year in Lenore and Ward combined. So, but I like your take on Brown. I love this kid. Hufanga comes back from his injury, and hopefully he's healed up and ready to go. He'll be interesting to watch. Him and Brown go at it. I love that combination back there. So our secondary just automatically already has improved from last year. From what's his name? The one that I can't think of his name. He retired now, but he was our safety.
Gibson,
yeah. I mean, I like what Gibson did, but I mean, he gave up some plays that I'm like, wow. So I like to see these young guys out there. On offense is hard. You're right. Because, Parshaw, I mean, is he going to do it? How much impact is he going to have? Really? A lot of people are like, he's going to be Rookie of the Year. I'm like, really? Not that he can't be. He just won't have the opportunity here to do so. People have to understand that. But I think and people are not going to like this, and it's okay, but I think that McKivitz is going to take a huge step forward at right tackle. Now, is he my preferred right tackle going forward? No. Don't get it twisted, okay? I'm saying he's going to do better than what he did last year, but I'm not saying that I'm settling for him and moving on. I think the Niners should have addressed that. I don't know about you, but I am not in favor of. I know that's what he played in college more than guard. They moved him to guard, but Spencer Burford, I do not want to see him at tackle. if he plays tackle the
Okay.
way he played a guard. I want to get your thoughts. I know he's more of a tackle in college. Do you think he might be able to show more as a tackle than he did as a guard?
So I think with the offensive line, Kyle Shanahan loves versatility. And I think when you look at how the offensive line is structured, there truly is only maybe two players set in stone in regards to they can only, and maybe three. Like Trent Williams is playing only left tackle. Aaron Banks is playing only left guard unless something catastrophic happens at right guard and they need to have a fix. Jake Brendel is this team's starting center, barring John Feliciano taking him, beating him out for his job, which I don't think is a competition currently. That said, you go to Feliciano, who has center and guard flexibility. McKivitz has both tackle and guard flexibility. John Feliciano, and look, people under them, Drake Nugent can play center, Ben Barge can play guard and center, Burford can play guard and tackle, Brendan Parker can play tackle, Dominic Pooney can play guard and tackle. Although I have my preference towards those, I think there is a world where the best fit in regards to best case scenario for the San Francisco 49ers starting offensive line is Trent Williams at left tackle, Aaron Banks at left guard, Jake Brendel at center, who, don't forget, 2 years ago was a second-team All-Pro. At right guard, it's Dominic Pooney. At right tackle, it's Colton McKivitz, with John Feliciano being your backup guard and center, Burford being your backup right guard and right tackle, Ben Barch being a third center, and then your backup left guard, and then having either Brandon Parker or somebody else, Jalen Moore maybe, being your kind of your backup left tackle. I think that would be hopeful. Now, that said, Jake Brendel is currently injured, and I think it's knee arthritis or tendonitis, whatever it is. So those things tend to linger. He's an older center in the NFL, got his start late in his career after a short stint with the Dolphins. So maybe he actually is hurt for the majority of the season, and I hope not. He's a fine center in the NFL. But I think the hope would be that your backup offensive lineman, Moore, Barch, Feliciano, Pooney, and Burford, they all have guard, tackle, center flexibility, which makes you so much more dangerous. Like, I would love to see some plays where you don't have two tight ends, you have 6 offensive linemen and George Kittle on the offensive line. Like, get crazy with it. Like, Kyle Shanahan, I want to see you go full bore, all power with Jordan Mason in the backfield, saying, let's bring this thing and take over a game with these guys. So that's my, my offensive line wish. But I don't think Burford is a starting caliber player whatsoever. He wasn't one last year. Showed in the biggest sense as to why he wasn't prepared for that game. But there's a real, and I hate to say this, but let's say Jake Brendel's healthy. There's a real chance Spencer Burford doesn't even make the team. It's a real possibility because Pooney's a right guard and right tackle. Barch can play guard and center. McKivitz can play guard and right tackle. And then Feliciano's there. So I don't want that to happen, but there is a chance, albeit maybe very slim.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, we passed that hour. I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. I love your takes. I love your football smarts. I would love to have you back. And I just want you, once again, to let people know where they can find you. Because I want people to tune into your channel. I want people to subscribe to your channel. Let's help this young man grow on his platforms. He breaks down every position. He breaks down things about the San Francisco 49ers that you may be finding interesting to watch and learn from. There's a lot of things that I have learned from him in his breakdown. So I encourage you guys to make sure to support him and follow him. So make sure to do this. Where can they follow you, and how's the easiest way they can grab a hold of you and start supporting you, my friend?
Well, first I want to say thank you so much for having me on. I know you've been in the chat a couple times on my show. It was certainly a privilege to be on your show and get to know you better and just chat it up. Love the Niners, love talking about them. So whenever I can do that, whether it's on your channel, my channel, or somebody else's channel, it's always a privilege to have the ability to go on YouTube and talk to the faithful about the Niners themselves. So thank you for the time to let me be on here. You can follow me on social media at 49ers_access. That's the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel 49ers Access on YouTube. We do shows roughly 1 to 2 times a week, try to do a Tuesday, Thursday show. And we just wrapped up this past week's show with my all starting quarterback breakdown yesterday. Ranked every single starting quarterback and some backups, by the way, in a tier from elite to rookies. Broke every single player down as to why they rank there and there. And I think you'll like where I placed Brock Purdy when it's all said and done as a Niner fan.
I like it. And just a note to that, I did watch a glimpse of that breakdown. He is not biased. He will give you based on his experience, and he puts players where he feels they belong in that category. So make sure to go follow him, support him. He's a young and upcoming guy on YouTube. He hit 1K. Congratulations on that. Let's get him to 1,500. And then let's go from there. You don't want to miss what he has to do and say about the Niners. If you like breakdowns, he'll give it to you. Actually, when I heard about the 7th round pick linebacker out of Florida State, and listen, I'm a Florida State myself, Seminoles. I knew what this kid's about, but I love the way you broke it down. And I watched that twice, that video. And so I'm learning, even I'm 54, I'm learning from someone that's 27. I don't care what the age is, you're always capable of learning. He breaks it down and makes it very clear and a way to appreciate and understand what he's breaking down. So listen, if you want to unsubscribe to me to subscribe to him, I'm willing to take that hit because this guy's... No, I'm being honest. He is knowledgeable. He knows what he's talking about. And if you want to get... if you want to learn about the Niners, I sincerely mean that, my friend. Unsubscribe to me to go subscribe to him. I'm willing to take that shot because I believe in this kid. I believe what he does and what he says. And I would love to have you back. I have a show on Tuesdays. I had mentioned it to you, but your lovely wife's birthday, and nobody's going to mess with her birthday. I'm with you.
Right.
But we go live on Tuesdays at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. So if you're ever available, there's 3 of us. They're great guys. We would love to have you on that show and partake of that in the near future.
Yeah, whenever I'm free, you DM me and we will find time because this was a great experience for myself.
Yeah, I'm going to give you my number too because those DMs sometimes I don't go into and look at them quickly. So, but we'll do that offline. All right, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on the show. Appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure to give my friend a follow. And always thank you. I say this every show I do. You guys already heard me say this a million times. This show or any show, in my opinion, would not be what it is without you, the viewers, without you guys supporting the channel in the comments, talking to one another, asking questions. You guys are truly the MVPs of these shows, at the very least my show. So I just want to give you guys a hand of applause. Thank each and every one of you. You know me, I go random. I love just to go random. I love to talk. My wife says I can talk the ears off a wooden Indian. So I do that. So always stay tuned to the next time. That's why it's always important to hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. Until then, we are out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. See you later.
Certified badass.